Paladins are one of the most played classes in all of D&D, and that extends even further to Baldur's Gate 3. With all the many options for multiclassing, this can lead to a bit of analysis paralysis as to which one is best. And let me open this video by saying there truly is no best Paladin multiclass. Rather, there is one that fits your party and playstyle the most that will invariably become the best. This is a single player narrative game, so you should be playing what you want to play or what you enjoy versus what the internet says is absolutely broken. So if this is your first time on my channel, the way I do things is by upfronting the knowledge in my videos so you can decide if it's the right one for you. With that being said, we will focus, of course, on not talking about any single one multiclass, but rather I'll explore the many popular Paladin combinations. These are the Sorcadin, Sorcerer or Paladin, which uses the Sorcerer's meta magic abilities to add a lot of range damage, but mainly adding a ton of spell slots for even more and stronger smites. This is probably the highest raw damage from Paladin. The Bardadin, Bard-Paladin combo, which can leverage a ton of skills and tap into some great spells using magical secrets with a heap of spell slots for smites. This is my top pick for the main character as you'll have access to almost everything. And the ever-famous Lockadin, Paladin Warlock focusing on the Pact of the Blade to allow for 3 attacks per main action. It's worth noting though that only works if you're not playing on honor mode. If you're looking to make a Lockadin and play honor mode, don't expect 3 attacks. The Lockadin is more of a pure melee focused character that can short rest their smite spell slots back online in a pinch. You're using this Lockadin to get more use out of your spell slots, but also a hopeful 3 attacks from your primary attack action. That's honestly the breakdown of all 3 of the main combinations for Paladin. I'll have a section focused on discussing other combos such as Cleric or Fighter, but that'll be at the end of the video. And if that's all you want to know, please feel free to shut the video down and get back to making your Paladin. Before you head out, please don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, all those fun things. Each one helps me in a huge way. I currently have something like 89% unsubscribed viewership on the channel, and that is a metric I am trying to change, and every little bit helps. You can jump ahead to any part of the video that interests you the most using chapters about the timeline and the description. And if you need help with any other subject in Baldur's Gate 3, check out my playlist linked below at the end of the video. It's everywhere. But let's get started here on what is the best Paladin multiclass in Baldur's Gate 3. And before we actually get into the individual classes, I'm going to put a link to this website here. One of the big things is looking at what your spell slots are going to, well, look like as you kind of split up your Paladin levels with whatever you're going to multiclass. So let's say right over here, we have 6 highlighted. That's 6 Paladin levels. So if we want to go 6 into Bard, that's going to give us 1 level 5 spell slot and then the rest corresponding. Or maybe we go no into Bard and 6 into Sorcerer. So use this tool as a way to kind of explore how to build your Paladin out. I'll talk about how really level 7 for Paladin is pretty huge, and that can actually add a whole different aura to your character depending on which Paladin pact you take, which conversely, though, leaves you with no level 5 spell slot for either Sorcerer or Bard. So you can kind of use this thing as a cool way to kind of figure out which of your spell slots are going to be coming online as you invest the necessary points levels into your respective classes. But I wanted to talk about this because spell slots are going to be a big focus in this video, since your spell slots are what you'll use to cast Smite. Well, use Smite. It's not really considered a spell. But let's go further now. And when it comes to your oath for Paladin, I have an entire video on this subject, so I'm not going to go into it too in depth here. But what I will say is the 2 that I recommend out the box are either Oath of the Ancients or Oath of Vengeance, depending upon what kind of character you want. Oath of the Ancients is going to afford you a lot of really cool abilities like this one right here, Healing Radiance. Healing Radiance is going to be nice because it's going to scale as you go through the game. It's basically your proficiency bonus, which starts at 2, becomes 3, and ends up as 4. Your Paladin level, which for pretty much all these builds will be 6. And then your Charisma modifier, which will at minimum be +3. So you add all those numbers together and you get a lot of healing that's going to be done every turn. In addition to at level 7, you get Aura of Warding as the Oath of the Ancients, which gives you resistance to damage from spells. So I like the Oath of the Ancients because it offers you a lot of party utility and a lot of party fun stuff. Oath of Vengeance here is really good if you want to focus on just pure melee damage. At level 3, you're going to get your Vow of Enmity, which is going to gain advantage on attack rolls against an enemy. It's huge. It's absolutely huge because you pretty much just turn that on and you're almost always going to have an absolute slam dunk on any, put it in the hoop like Simon, but ready for Space Jam, on any hard enemy you're attacking. So those are the 2 I recommend, Oathbreaker and Oath of Devotion are also good, just they have a little bit more specific use cases. Oathbreaker, you have to be comfortable with breaking the oath of your paladin and going down that road, and Oath of Devotion plays better with, say, maybe a cleric and other things of the sort. But those are the two subclasses I'd recommend just out the gate between the two. For all intents and purposes, I'm going to be using Oath of the Ancients because I think it's a little bit more of a come-all. I can use it in every single build and have utility, versus Oath of Vengeance, I'm going to be focusing on melee capabilities. So now let's get into some discussions about these multi-classes. Now to start us off, we're going to talk about the Bardadin. And you can see I'm already playing a lovely violin. It's a lovely concerto. And the Bardadin delivers just an insane amount of utility to this character. You're playing a character that can, for all intents and purposes, do everything in melee combat and do it very effectively. You're going to have up to level 5 spell slots. I deliberately don't have one level chosen. I'm going to show you why. And you get a lot of utility from it, right? So just looking at our Lay on Hands, we get the Lay on Hands, going to give us a lot of healing. We're going to get our Channel Oath, which is going to give us Turn the Faithless because we are an Ancients Paladin. And this is the last time I'll talk about this. The other two are going to be kind of self-explanatory with these because they'll all have this. Nature's Wrath, so we can restrain an enemy. They cannot move. Attack rolls against them have advantage. Their attack rolls and dex saves have disadvantage. And we get healing. So just from being a paladin, we get those things. And we also get very strong smites, right? Where's our level 4 one? Go. There it is. So our smite is going to do 5 to 40 damage, right? Increase when attacking fiends or undead is an additional 1 to 8 radiant damage per level. So we're getting a ton of damage coming out from our divine smites that we have a lot of access to, right? Since we have so many spell slots. And again, we don't even have a level 5 spell slot active. We have really good level 4 spells here, and I just have a couple of them chosen. But since we went with a lore bard, specifically a lore bard, and a Ancients Paladin, we have stuff like Magic Weapon to make our weapon do more damage, bonus to attack and damage rolls. We get Moonbeam, which is just a disgusting amount of radiant damage we can stack into our character. But we also get even just simple things like Tasha's Hideous Laughter is a level 1 spell that you will have the use of almost the entirety of your playthrough. You're going to get access to Misty Step, giving you a lot of good mobility and functionality across the board. Glyph of Warding, which is a really strong level 3 spell. So, and Hold Person, a really great CC that you can get just a lot of continuous use out of. And you as a bard get Song of Rest. Now, this can be a little confusing when you read it. Your and your allies are revitalized as though you would have taken a short rest. Because my brain's not smart, I thought this only meant the health, kind of like prayer of healing. Nope. You just get a free short rest. So now you get 3 short rests rather than just your standard 2 because of this Song of Rest. It's a really great ability. And you have, of course, your Aura of Protection, which is going to increase bonus to saving throws because of your charisma. And you have your Bardic Inspirations. And at level 5, Bardic Inspiration A is now a 1d8 bonus rather than a 1d6. And it will replenish on a short rest. These guys will replenish on a short rest. So you have a lot of functionality out of these, increasing attack roll, ability check, saving throws, which can help you in the main game quite a bit. In the main game, in the playthrough, in non-combat is what I meant. Good Lord. Now outside of it, I'm going to level up here and get my level 6 ability here from Bard. Level 6 Bard, Lore Bard in specific, gets us Magical Secrets. Otherwise, that happens at level 10. And from Magical Secrets, you can get a ton of really strong capabilities. You can even get some Warlock spells, like Armor of Agathis, which is really sick, or Hunger of Hadar, which is a great CC and damage spell. But Counterspell is very strong. Shield is an amazing ability, which I swear to God I can find with my eyes that I will not be able to find while I'm talking about this. It's somewhere around here. I thought Shield was. Maybe I'm wrong. But either way, as I keep riffing, Spirit Guardians is probably one of my go-to picks because now, when I have this active, things around me are going to take 3 to 24 radiant damage. And I can upcast this from a level 3 spell slot up to one of my level 5 spell slots. So I can make this actually be a really strong, persistent amount of damage around me. I get access to haste. It's just a really good ability for the paladin that they can really leverage themselves into. I guess you can't get shield. You know what? Well, this video now doesn't make any fucking sense because I'm stupid, but still, either way, you get a lot of really great abilities here. Having haste online with Spirit Guardians, or even just another counter spell in the party is really great. Warden of Vitality is an amazing healing spell. While this aura lasts, you can cast Restore Vitality as a bonus action to heal yourself or nearby allies. There's just so much fun stuff. You can get Flight, a lot of really great things you get from just simply being this type of bard. And 2, the Bard package of spells at this point too is very strong. Hypnotic Pattern, Fear, Crown of Madness, I think Blindness, yeah, Blindness is in here, Silence, you've got Shatter. All these things really give you a ton of utility. You are a really good caster, you're a really good what's it called, paladin, but also you are, as the term is called, a skill monkey. If you see all these little stars, it means I have a proficiency in them. And as you can see, I've got tons of proficiency. In sleight of hand and stealth, what am I going to use that? I'm a paladin, but I've also got history, I've got insight, perception, deception, intimidation, and now I have expertise in performance and persuasion. So you see that almost every skill check in the game is no longer scary because you are a bard paladin. You have access to a wide range of spells covering the gamut of pretty much everything, and you have a ton of damage you can do with these spells. If I upcast this bad boy all the way up here, you can see that this is going to do 5 to 40 damage around me. So it's just a lot of fun, a lot of radiant damage, and you pretty much have a tool for every single thing that you would need access to as a Bardadin. One thing I did forget to talk about though with the Bardadin is cutting words. So this is a reaction that will trigger the target receives a 1d6 penalty to attack roll, ability check, or damage dealt. So whenever you're trying to have something go off, maybe it's a really hard to hit monster, it's a boss, whatever it is, you get to use cutting words. It does cost you a bardic inspiration, which at this point, once you max out this character, will be replenished on short rest. And it is a reaction, so you can use this once per turn. But it's a nice way to just really kind of help push something through that they maybe would have otherwise saved, or would have failed, whatever it is. Like, hey, you know what? The target receives a 1d6 penalty to their attack roll, and they were just about to do a really heavy attack to me. And this really is the thing that allowed them to miss. Or now, I can change that damage dealt, ability check, whatever it is. It's a really strong capability of the lore bard I forgot to highlight. Which brings me to my conclusion. Bardadin is definitely the class for you, or the multi-class for you, if you want to focus on being a jack of all trades. Can you focus on a little bit of spell damage? Can you focus on some spell utility, some CC, some healing? All these things are covered as the Bardadin. Do you not want to have a rogue in your party, and do you want to be the person who picks the locks? Well, you can do that with a Bardadin. There's a lot of really great things that I think this combination does. And I've always kind of said this is like the true quote unquote main character, because you can talk to everyone you want to talk to, you can perform, you can do pretty much everything the game has to offer. If you want to go with heavy armor and great weapons, which I have on this character, you definitely can. You can go with a sword and a board if you want. You have every single option open to you as a bard paladin. So while this might seem like it's the strongest of all of the three that we're going to talk about, it's definitely one that is kind of right behind the Sorcerer in its raw damage capabilities, because we have so many really cool things that we can do, but the Sorcerer allows us to really amp the amount of spell damage we can do. Now the Sorcadin is going to be about spell slots. You're just going to get so many of them because of your abilities as a Sorcerer. Let's take a look at what we've got here. And this is the one that gets shield. I just don't know why it brain farted on me earlier. But as far as some of our level 1 stuff we get access to is going to be shield, right? We're going to get shield right out the gate at level 1 with Sorcerer, which is awesome. Or a magic missile, which never misses. Now, the big thing too is we're going to get our same, lay on hands and channel oaths that we've had before. But now we get sorcery points. And those sorcery points can either be used for meta magic, which is going to be a big thing here, right? So I can use twin spell. Spells that only target one creature can target an additional creature. So for example, I can twin spell haste and cast it on me and another person up next to me. I can go ahead and use enlarge on myself, whatever or another creature, and now we're going to be doing more damage in close combat. So we have a lot of ways that we can have a lot of fun with these abilities, or even something like this. Quicken spell. Spells that cost an action cost a bonus action instead. So now all of my action costing spells, like, you know what? I really need to get a hold person down. Well, it's now a bonus action to cast this, which I can then go in and get a guaranteed critical hit. Look at that. Hold a humanoid enemy still. They can't move or act or react. Attacks from within 10 feet are always critical hits. So you use the sorcery points here, hold person onto something, and then you use your primary action to smite, slam fuck the shit out of them. You can really do a lot of things with this, and it allows you a lot of abilities to manipulate the game in a lot of crazy ways. But remember, sorcery points aren't exclusively used for these capabilities. Distant spell 2 I have here, so increase the range of spells by 50%. So all these melee spells like Shocking Grasp or Burning Hands, which I didn't actually get, but Burning Hands, I can now use to have me do a little bit of range damage out of those. So it's a really, really fun capability. But remember, sorcery points. We can use these to replenish spell slots. Create a spell slot, spend sorcery points to unlock a spell slot. So by clicking this, I can regenerate some of my level 1 spell slots or level 2 spell slots for more smites to be used with my character. And that's really the rub of it, right? I have your standard amount of spell slots that my other Bardadin would have, but now I have the ability to turn some of those spell slots online again using simple sorcery points. Or even then, converting my spell slots into sorcery points. Spend spell slots to gain sorcery points, right? So we can go ahead and convert this level 4 spell slot to gain 4 sorcery points on a 1-to-1. Now, we don't have all the skills that we had with the Bardadin, right? We still have a good amount because we are a charisma-based class, so we're using all of our charisma-based abilities. But another thing too we have is the Sorcerer's subclass. And the two I'd recommend are either Storm Sorcery, which would allow you then to fly as a bonus action after casting a spell, or the one I've gone with is Draconic Ancestry or Draconic Bloodline. And the reason behind that is, let's level up to level 6 and we'll talk about it. I went with the White Dragon. And for that reason, I now will have an elemental affinity resistance, which in this case is cold, and I'll have an elemental affinity damage. So if I pick the Ray of Frost, this will allow me to get a little bit of extra damage, right? When you cast a spell that deals damage of the type associated with your Draconic Ancestry, you add your charisma modifier to the damage. The nice thing here is that's just a passive ability that is on. Versus this, when you cast a spell that deals damage to the type associated with your Draconic Ancestry, you can spend 1 sorcery point to gain resistance to that damage type. That's not as cool to me. I'd rather just have that flat damage increase. So you can go with maybe a fire-based one, and all those Searing Smites or Branding Smites and all the ones that do fire damage can get the benefit there. And I'll explain why I went with cold in just a second here. But just to show off all of the spells we get as a sorcerer, we're going to again have counterspell we're going to have access to. We get really cool stuff like Enlarge, like I showed off just a little bit ago. We get Flight if we want that Hypnotic Pattern again. Fear, Protecting from Energies there is cool. Darkness, we get Scorching Ray. A lot of really cool abilities. Slow, we have Haste already on the character, but just to show off some of the ones we don't have turned on. Even stuff like, again, Counterspell is nice to just kind of have on multiple characters if you can. You're going to be dealing with Counterspell quite a bit in the latter portions of the game. Those are a great ability just to have. So having all these things kind of come together, and the reason I chose the cold Draconic Ancestry is I get Armor of Agathis for free, which is typically a Paladin spell, or I'm sorry, a Warlock spell, right? So I can go ahead and cast this. I'm not going to cast level 6 version or 5 version of it, but I can get a really juicy 5 temp damage, 5 cold damage, which can then get the bonus of my Draconic Ancestry, free damage anytime someone hits me. So it's nice that I can kind of have this extra padding to my character on top of my, default abilities as a Paladin, stuff like Armor of Protection and whatnot. So the Sorcadin is definitely that raw smiter of the 3, right? And in conclusion, this is the one you want to go with. I think either if you're building a Paladin as a non-main character, or you as the main character are really focused on trying to do as much damage as you can, because you're just able to pull so much utility out of these spells using your meta magic. And in addition to that, you really can have a lot of fun just non-stop smiting things because of the amount of spell slots you have. Like, so if we just take a look at what we've got 9, 10, 14 spell slots without using any of our sorcery points. So you can just have so many smites online with this build, and that is really the big focus of it, in addition to getting stuff like I said, there it is, twin spell haste onto things or whatever it is. But in conclusion, like I said, this is your pure damage, high damage yield character for your Paladin. Let's now jump over to Warlock. Lastly, we have the Lockadin, focusing on Warlock and Paladin to deliver a very interesting approach to the character. Now, taking a look at our character here, by the way, that's anytime you use any of these abilities, that's what happens. In case you're wondering how the hell that go down. So with a Lockadin, we have a character that has these special Warlock spell slots. Now, these recharge on a short rest, which is nice because it allows us to basically kind of stay in the fight a little bit longer. We can use those short rests to keep these online, either for spells or actual smites. Now, this is, of course, different than the Sorcadin, which you can just simply convert their spell slots to spell sorcery points or vice versa, which then equals smites, of course, right? But what we get with the Lockadin, which is unique, is this ability right here, Bind Pact Weapon. So we can basically become proficient in any weapon, which is fine. And in addition to that, you use your spell casting ability as the weapon's damage. So this allows you to have higher dexterity, higher constitution, and focus on charisma. So you don't need to have any strength actually as a Lockadin. I do on this character because I've just been basically respecking them each time. But I could sit here and have 16 constitution, which allows me to maintain my concentration better on spells, 16 charisma, and then 14 dex, which helps increase my initiative. And well, if I'm going heavy armor, it doesn't really help my armor class, but it can help out with my initiative regardless. So you don't need strength as this paladin combination, which is a very cool little boon. You focus on the other abilities which help you out more. Well, help you out in different ways. And in addition to that, because we are the Pact of the Blade, we have Deepened Pact. Now, Deepened Pact, Blade place Pact holders gain an extra attack with their Pact weapon. Like I said before in the intro, if you're playing an Honor mode, this does not give you a third extra attack like it does in every other playthrough. So if I go to do an attack right now, I will hit with my primary action. I will get my extra attack into that, and now I'll get my Deepened Pact. So I get 3 attacks out of 1 simple attack action. It's a very huge boon to this capability, and this is why I've said this is more of like the pure melee of the 3. I'm not necessarily relying on my Divine Smites to do all my damage like I am for maybe the other 2. I can actually rely on just simply using Great Weapon Master and Savage Attacker feats plus my melee capabilities to really rip things up, which is a cool different way to approach the class. In addition to, you have your Warlock capabilities that you get Eldritch Invocations. And I've focused on the ones that help out, so my Eldritch Blast does more damage. This way, I now have a range capability that will do quite a bit of damage. So this will pull from my Charisma modifier, and it will push things back. But we also have another Eldritch Invocation, which is very important, Devil's Sight. You can see normally in darkness, both magical and non-magical. So when you deal with stuff in Act 2, or you deal with any kind of darkness spell, you can actually see through it. You're not going to be blinded, which is really, really, really huge. And all that stuff kind of comes together to deliver a class that is very fun with its damage capabilities. Because Warlocks have a subclass they can choose, Archfey, Fiend, or a Great Old One. In my opinion, Great Old One is the best of the 3 for this particular class. Yes, with the Fiend, you get access to temp hit points, but those temp hit points will fall off towards the latter portions of the game because you're only allowed temp hit points from one source. There's lots of ways to get temp hit points. Instead, you get Mortal Reminder from the Great Old One. When you land a critical hit against a creature, that creature and any nearby enemies must succeed a Wisdom saving throw or become frightened until the end of their next turn. And Frightened is really strong because it locks someone down. Disadvantage on ability checks and attack rolls, and they can't move. So just having this built into the character automatically every time you do a crit hit is a really nice capability for this character, and it's what I really like about it. Now at level 6 though, we get some other fun stuff for Warlock, and why I'm going to save this level up here. We get this subclass feature, Entropic Ward. As a reaction, you can impose disadvantage on an attack roll against you. If the attack misses, you gain advantage on your next attack roll against your attacker for 1 turn. So this is a nice capability. I like it. It's a reaction. It can only be used once per turn, which is really cool, but I just really like the usefulness of this one out of the other ones. In addition to, I like these spells the Great Old One offers me, which are pretty nice. Here's all of the spells you get access to. Again, we're going to see Counterspell on this list, which is always going to be helpful for your character, but Vampiric Touch is really awesome for some pure necrotic damage that also gives you hit points back. It's a really nice one because it's a concentration ability, which you are a little jammed up on as a paladin, but having this online is really cool. Hold Person for some CC, Slow for some CC, Bestow curse, remove curse. Well, I mean, you probably want those on clerics, to be honest. But hypnotic pattern is still here. We have flight, we have fear, we have crown of madness. We have a lot of really great capabilities, and even some of the ones that I currently have access to, armor of Agathis, which is great. Arms of Hadar, which is really great in the beginning of the game. Hunger of Hadar, which is again one of my favorite AOE kind of CC and damage capabilities. Also, if we well, never mind, that was Sorcerer. Darkness, you have that a really good ability. Hex, Tasha's Hideous Laughter. All these is just a really strong kit of spells you get access to as a Lockadin, which I really like. Now, one thing I will say, and this is going to be in the next section, of the Paladin spell subclass combinations, I think Warlock can be the one that you go 7-5, 7 levels into Paladin, 5 levels into Warlock more often than not. Like, this is a great subclass feature with the passive capability of Aura of Warding, specifically from the Oath of Ancients Paladin, to me is a little bit more generally useful if I have a more melee-centric class. You have to be within 10 feet of me. If I don't, or I just need this overall benefit because this is the main character going out doing all the melee fighting, then this would make more sense. But I wanted to bring that up here before we jump into the next section. So let me take this, let me press accept, and we'll jump back over to all of our abilities put together here now. You can see that we have quite a few to go off of, as we've already kind of talked about with our Lay on Hands and Channel Oath. But just looking up at our spell slots, this is, again, the kind of the weakness of this character. You only have 6 raw spell slots, plus the 2 short rest replenishing ones, which are nice, but still it's not really the sheer amount of spell slots you get from the other 2 classes, right? So this, in conclusion, I guess, this subclass is really, really strong if you want to just really use some strong melee capabilities and just punch things in the fucking face, man. Like, you really are going to have a lot of fun basically using this character almost as a glorified fighter that can get their smites online every so often, or can use their entropic ward to do some disadvantages, or use that crit strike to help you get some fear out. What I like is that this character has a lot of utility going for them on top of just simply being a paladin, that it can really, really have a lot of compounding effects, right? Like, oh man, this thing's now going to do 4 to 24 on an AoE around me and things can't use reactions. Or you know what? Let me just get a stupid amount of 10 hit points and cold damage coming out from Armor of Agathis. Or, you know, let's just go with a really strong level 3 spell slot Divine Smite that's going to replenish on a short rest for me, right? 25 to 63 damage coming out of that bad boy, which is just absolutely girthy. And it's just something that is really fun, too, from a thematic standpoint. Warlock Paladin are kind of a little bit on edge with each other as far as like what their overall focus is, and it makes for a very fun role play, right? Because you do have to stick with your overall pact situation, try not to, or I'm sorry, oath situation, try not to break that at the same time becoming an Oathbreaker. This also makes for a cool Oathbreaker class. Oathbreaker Warlock is really fun. So if you want to do more melee damage, focus on that, having a little bit of utility, this is going to be the subclass for you. So with all these multi-classes, you have the option between, do you want to go level 7 into Paladin, or level 7 into the other class, or level 5 into Paladin, whatever it is. The kind of question is, do I go with a 6-6 even split, a 7-5 Paladin, or 7-5 other class? And it's really up to you how you want to go with your character. I would tell you that if I went with any oath outside of the Oath of Ancients or Oathbreaker, I wouldn't go to 7. The Oath of Vengeance at 7 doesn't really make a ton of sense for me. Same thing with Devotion. The Oath of Ancients gets Aura of Warding, so you take half damage from spells, which is really good. And the Oathbreaker gets an aura, which basically increases a flat damage increase to you, undead, and Fae around you in 10 feet, as based off your Charisma modifier. So those things are nice. This is a good defensive one. It mitigates damage from spells. And with the Oathbreaker, it's just, you just do more damage outright. So those things are kind of how you have to factor into the character. And even over that, you have to kind of look at the fact that at level 6 Paladin, we get our Aura of Courage, which I might be in this, I think it is somewhere, but I can't find it. Aura of Courage, which gives us some flat defensive capabilities. So if you don't want those capabilities at level 6 for Paladin, and you want to pull more out of the subclass you're going with, either a 7 Bard, a 7 Sorcerer, a 7 Warlock, a 7 Fighter, whatever it is, go for it. Most of the things that happen though with your subclass, they happen at level 6. That's why we're going with an even 6-6 split, right? So if I take a look at Bard, bring it up to level 6, this is when I get my magical secrets at Bard. This is when I get my counter charm as Bard. I get more spells at level, I think I get my level, no, I don't get level 3 spell slots at 5. But still, all the big things happen at that 6th level. That Aura of Courage for Paladin. You get the Draconic Ancestry bonus for your Sorcerer. You get your specific subclass Patron bonus for Warlock. So all that stuff happens at 6, and it's up to you really. I think 6-6 though is a very healthy split, and it's a pretty good way to approach all the multi-classing that you're going to do. Now, as far as other multi-class combinations go, you can really have fun with pretty much everything. Nothing's really going to completely derail the character. It might be a little different or a little bit weaker than some of the ones we talked about, but a druid is just fine. You just have to realize though that if you go with something like a cleric or a druid, you might need to go into wisdom depending upon what you want to pull out of the character. Like if I wanted to go with druid and go with a spore druid, well, I can still not go that heavy into wisdom and be just fine. If I wanted to go with a moon druid, I could still probably not go that heavy into wisdom and just be just fine, but I'd not really get advantage of most of my paladin stuff. A very common one though is cleric. I actually have a couple videos off this. A life domain and paladin cleric is probably one of the best healers in the game, especially if you're going Oath of Ancients. But you can go with something like a war domain cleric and get access to this really great special subclass feature. When you make an unarmed or weapon attack, you can spend a war priest charge to make an additional attack as a bonus action. So it allows you to get a ton of attacks out of one turn, so that you've got your extra attack from your primary action and this War Priest charge. And then you can eventually get Divine Strike at level 2, which you can increase increase your attack roll by 10. You have a lot of really cool ways that with War Domain that you can become a much better melee combatant. Light Domain is really sick for as far as a defensive capability because you get this Warding Flare. Use your reaction to impose disadvantage on an attacker, possibly causing their attacker to miss. At level 5 or 6, Light Domain Cleric, you can actually do this on people who get attacked that are not you in your party. So there's a lot of really cool tanky capabilities that the Light Domain Cleric brings to the table. So you can have a lot of fun with this class, and I think it's not the popular subclass, but I think personally, Paladin Cleric is one of my favorite combinations because you just get so much out of all the different domains depending upon how you want to split it. But even just going simply into fighter is really strong. You get a free heal with Second Wind. Then at level 2, you get Action Surge, so you get a whole additional action. And then at level 3, Paladin and Battlemaster fighter is really strong. Even just Paladin Champion fighter is stupid strong because you're just better at critting, right? So you can have a lot of fun with just going with fighter. Rogue into Thief gives you an extra bonus action you can have fun with. So if you want to spend more stuff with your bonus actions, you can have a lot of fun with that. Even going with something like Monk could be kind of crazy because you can go into the unarmed portion of this and amp up that radiant damage quite a bit while using your wisdom to kind of lean into it. There's a lot of fun you can do with Paladin and Monk as well. And even moreover, Barbarian is fucking awesome because you can enrage as a barbarian and use your divine smites because your divine smites are not considered spells. They are weapon reactions to a weapon attack. So this says, gain resistance to physical damage advantage on strength checks. You can't cast or concentrate spells while raging. So that's the big thing to note though, is all the other things of being a paladin, like all of your spells and stuff like that require concentration, you cannot use when you're enraged. But you can still get a lot of value out of simply being a barbarian, berserker, paladin, Oath of Vengeance, and go to town on things. There's a lot of really great ways you can kind of split these classes up to have a lot of fun. So don't think that all the ones I've mentioned are the only ways you can play paladin. Please, play not just the ones I've mentioned, but Paladin itself in any way you see fit. 12 levels into Paladin is a very strong and good character. So hopefully this video gives you a little bit of guidance on which multi-class you can really have a lot of fun with as a Paladin. And I think ultimately at the end of the day, it's just going to come down to you, your party, and what you want to get the most out of your specific characters in that party that will dictate which multi-class is going to be the best fit for you. As always, guys, thank you so much for watching here today. If you have any recommendations on maybe even a triple multi-class, hey, do 2 levels here, 1 level here, 5 levels here, or whatever the hell it is, whatever equals 12. I can't do math clearly. Go ahead and let it be known in the comment section below. But as always, have a good one and take care.